Karumame yamamo, 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 karumame.
Now that we're hopefully feeling more grounded into our own body, our energy, into the space around us, let's continue with the rest of the ceremony. So I'd like to start by explaining the 3 levels of consciousness that are currently present upon our beautiful planet. And these concepts might seem a little bit out there for you, maybe the first time that you've heard them, but I encourage you to really reflect upon your own experiences and see how they relate to you. Let's dive into understanding these 3 different states of consciousness present upon this planet. So perhaps you've heard of the 3rd dimension, the 4th and the 5th, or also perhaps 3rd density, 4th density, and 5th density consciousness. So some people use these terms interchangeably. I will use them here as a meaning of a state of consciousness. So for a very long time, the Earth has existed within 3rd density consciousness. And this is really where we experience the world through a physical level. So we're living through the realm of the ego. And the ego is separate, or sees itself as separate from the other. So when a child is born, there is no ego present until about 2 years old, when the child starts to realize that it is actually a separate entity from its mother, and that's when it develops a state of I consciousness. That's when you'll hear a child saying, mine, mine, and not wanting to share because they're really seeing themselves as a separate being. And in the same way, in 3rd density consciousness, we see ourselves as separate from the other. So it's very individualized focus. So we're not seeing ourselves as interconnected, it's separation. And from this separation typically stems from fear, lack of resources, not having enough. This facilitates a sort of competitive environment within the world where it's us versus them, and the feeling of not having enough resources to share. And therefore from this mentality comes war, poverty, war because we're fighting because there's not enough, poverty because some people are viewed as better than others, and so the resources are not shared equally. So you can see 3rd density consciousness can be very harmful in the way that we live, and a lot of us have existed within this realm for a long time. This also harbors the emotion of jealousy, anger, resentment, sadness, and fear. Now, I'm sure we can identify a lot of times when we have been in this state, and it's neither right or wrong, it just simply is. However, the Earth now, as we awaken collectively, is transitioning into higher states of consciousness. So the 4th density state of consciousness is almost seen as the bridge between the 3rd density and the 5th density. So the 4th is almost like a little transition realm where we dip into those higher states of consciousness and then we might come back into the 3rd. Again, neither is right or wrong. So in the 4th density, on this little bridge between the 2 realms, we might find ourselves experiencing moments of clarity, of understanding that we are connected to everything, everyone, every being, every plant within this earth. We might find ourselves having little synchronicities that are occurring in our life. Perhaps we're thinking of someone and then they just call us. Perhaps we're seeing angel numbers or signs happening. This is where we start to realize that our internal realm and our thoughts influence our reality around us. Perhaps you might be familiar with the law of attraction. This is typically the gateway to understanding the realms of higher consciousness. So in 4th density, we can easily slip back into 3D. We can dabble a little bit in 5D, but we typically fluctuate within this space. When we do move on to the even higher state of consciousness, 5th density, 5D, this is when we realize a complete understanding of unity between ourselves and all other beings. This is where, of course, the ego is still present, but we realize the ego for what it is, a survival mechanism for helping us keep safe. When perhaps once upon a time we were running away from tigers and lions, we needed to have this sense of fear. Whereas moving on from the fifth density, we really acknowledge the value of unconditional love, compassion, and oneness. Even though we are in separate physical bodies, we realize that there is an energetic thread running between each and every being on earth that connects us back to source, the same energy of which we all come from and will return to. And when we are in this mindset, we do not see each other as separate, and therefore we want to share. This is where we come into this place of community, giving to others, helping, the understanding that when we give, we always receive that back from the universe. This is where we come to a place of full trust and full surrender into the grand scheme of the universe. It's having a deep understanding that there is inherent meaning behind everything in life, that everything happens for a reason. This is where we experience strong synchronicities. Perhaps those angel numbers are flooding in. Perhaps you're experiencing moments of telepathy. Perhaps your intuition is very strong and you can really sense and feel the energies around you. Perhaps you're lucid dreaming, astral traveling, experiencing signs and being able to understand them within the world and the dream world around you. So this, of course, represents a much higher state of consciousness. We really see one another as brothers and sisters. We come from compassion and love, and even though we might see the suffering of others in the world, we do not judge them. We truly understand that everybody is on their own journey. So when we are embodied within the 5D state of consciousness, this is where we remain within this realm. Once you're in the 5D, it's very hard to slip back into 3D, and of course you may have moments you'll be able to pull yourself back very quickly. So now that you hopefully have a little bit of an understanding of the different realms of consciousness within this planet Earth, or that are currently accessible to us within this planet Earth, let's do some little journaling activities on these.